Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're still waiting for some people to wake up this morning. So glad that all of you are here. Fantastic. Always, I want to recognize you and give you applaud for investing in yourself and making sure that you're showing up every day. So that's absolutely fantastic. I'll just go over an overview of what we've been learning about and over these 4 days, what you've been able to capture. So on day one, we talked about the introduction to construction management and just what an amazing field this is. And not only does it pay good, but it really gives us an understanding of being able to just use the skills that we use every day and transition those into construction and construction management. We understood the roles and responsibilities of a construction manager and just being really clear about us being a facilitator and not providing direction or something that might put our position or our client or owner's position in a higher risk type of situation. We want to leave means and methods to the experts. And as a construction manager, we're just the conduit to facilitate information. Then on day two, we talked about our master plan and how important it is in everything to have a master plan. I'm a little bit obsessed with the master plan idea. And I told you again, that was because I cannot stand to see cut asphalt trenches in a brand new road. This is the part that it drives me absolutely crazy. So if you have a big overview, if you have a goal that has detail and color and just really puts your vision together, you're able to put smell, sound, emotion to that vision, then we're really going to be able to feel that that's exactly what we want to align everything up with. And what's amazing about that is knowing that we don't have to know how to do it. And so we're going to do this again, always trying to implement construction management into our life. So using terminology that allows us to take a master plan, identify the end deliverable, be able to do a back pass, design it and divide it into phases, and then do a front pass and build milestones into each of those phases to be able to get us to our end goal. Okay, so when we're thinking about a master plan, we're always thinking about the end in mind. On day three, we talked about 8 key foundational skill sets, and this will be one of your first quizzes here on the 5-day challenge, and that is to name the 8 key skill sets. So when we get into discussion, I'm going to be asking you about what those are, and we talked about the number 1 skill set being awareness. Always knowing and understanding what's around you is really important, but knowing and understanding what's inside of you and hearing that voice that you have and aligning it and making choices and decisions that direct you towards that vision in your master plan. Now, today we're going to be talking about the knowledge transition bridge. And so this is a bridge that we're going to build, and we're going to learn how to lift up the skill sets that we personally each might need to develop and provide some growth in our life in order to be able to make it to that end vision or that end goal. So on day one, we identified things that we thought that we were really good at. And then we also identified a few things that we know that we need to work on. So today, what we're going to do is start building the piers in order to be able to put that bridge together that's going to take us over into becoming a construction manager. So with that, thank you again, everyone, for being here today. And I want to say good morning. And then I also want to invite any of you to talk about the homework that you did yesterday and any thoughts that you might have about the training so far.
Good morning. So for the homework, you're talking about the workbook, right?
Yes.
Is in the workbook. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt like, I played around with it and put some scores and then was like, maybe over here, and kind of going back and forth there with a few of them. And for me, I mean, I think the lowest one was communication on that. So that's kind of one that I'll be looking at improving.
Yeah, communication, as we talked about yesterday, it's a tough one because it's not just about you being able to give communication, it's how the other person is receiving it. And so being able to read them and kind of, again, use your awareness to see where they're at and be able to maybe readjust your delivery right in midstream and be able to try to communicate with those people on their communication style or their communication level. So thank you. Ollie, what about you?
Actually, communication, even we deal with it every day. But sometimes the young boys or girls, like they have, it's very hard to understand how they thought, and very hard to understand how they get information from us. So with like when I talk to them, sometimes they don't like that, and they refuse what I said to them. It's hard to deal with everyone. I deal with about 30% every day. So some people, they know what I ask from them. Some people know they're still struggling, and hey, I don't understand that. What should I do for that? And they still complaining. Communication is very, and trade with people is very hard. A leadership, like, of course, we have to lead all our workers to reach our goal, but we need to know how they feel to make him comfortable in the work, not come and force him, hey, you have to work in here, and he's not feel comfortable in this area. They not will give us like a good work, not when they put him in his area, and that area he like to work on it. Like a holding guy, we cannot let him work in different area, like in HVAC or in any another area. If he work in like a welding, and give him some material to do that, he will love that. Anyone love his work. That's what I like what I read it yesterday. That's what they give me that some point for those.
And it's almost, again, leadership going back to communication, because a lot of the times, we feel that disconnect, and people really do want to talk and they really want to be heard, but a lot of times they don't know how to communicate what it is that they're feeling or that's going on inside of them. And so sometimes it's just a matter of asking questions and not giving up, even though it may feel like a very uncomfortable space. So I commend you on trying to find different ways to reach the people and be a leader in that. So Nicholas, what about you?
Well, it was ugly at first, but then I took a look at the assessment again, and yeah, just looking at probably scheduling, budget, and communication. Those are areas I'm probably like a D+ in, mainly because my industry, we don't work with schedules. It's basically the permits issued, get it done now. And so scheduling is always on the back burner. It's just more of hurry up and get it done. And there's not much preparation. There are projects that I do that has schedules, which is nice. But there's some pitfalls with that. As far as budget, that is well a challenge too, especially when clients ask for it. That's a little bit of an issue. I have all my numbers and my estimates. I can pull the data, but trying to compile that data and how much time it takes to compile that data into a manageable thing is challenging for me. And maybe there's some technology we can use in the future and stuff. And then communication, yeah. Communication, I think, is normal communication is fine. I can do that, but the challenge is during difficult situations, very contentious situations, and how to communicate in a way that doesn't escalate and de-escalates. I have found that I hire around that because that's an area that I struggle with. So I've hired around that to have somebody that can communicate in a very high level to my clients, which is very helpful.
Helpful, but also your awareness of that is huge, to be able to acknowledge something like that and then be able to find strengths that can then support it. And it's all about emotion, right? And making sure that we can keep emotion out of something and just stick to the facts. And in construction, everyone, it is a hard thing to do. We have a lot of personalities that are very strong, and they're very strong for a good reason. We need them to make hard choices and to know to move forward with those. And they have to have confidence and the ability to be able to do that. And so when that is questioned, it puts people in a very defensive mode. And so it can be very, very difficult conversations. And I understand the nature of your work, that is basically a emergency situation all the time. And so that can be very hard to schedule, but at least trying to see how it schedules or measures up amongst all of your other work, and trying to control the monster a little bit so that all of it doesn't feel so overwhelming and come down all at one time. And budget's always hard for everyone, especially when you are dealing with an owner who may not understand. A lot of times when we spend money on construction, we want to see the result. And many times it is what is getting us the foundation and prep work necessary in order for us to get to the product or the deliverable that costs the most money up front. And so it's hard to explain. So the only way that we can go through that is just always be in that teacher mode of recognizing that we have to educate our clients and those that are working around us to be educating all the time, so that it's not about them being defensive or, explaining that, it's that way because it has to be that way. Like they literally have to understand it in order to appreciate it and feel good about it. So, well, very good. I'm glad that you guys did that. And I actually am kind of surprised, really, to when you hear someone with the magnitude of experience that Nicholas has, and then, being able to stand up and say, some of the strongest things necessary in the construction industry, I'm not feeling really good about. Like those are things that I would like to improve on. But the thing that I want everyone to recognize is, like, even in Nicholas' situation, when he's talking about communication, it is a whole entirely different communication style for the different aspects of the project. So talking to a client or an owner is totally different than having to talk to a subcontractor who's not performing on the job. And those can get mixed up really easy in the middle of the day. Often you can carry something from one conversation into the next conversation. And so these are tools that we really don't talk about a lot in construction because it's not cool, but we're going to talk about it now. And that is even taking a moment to just go sit in the truck and take 5 deep breaths and just try to reset. And the thing about it is you're not just resetting from a conversation that you had a difficult encounter with. You're actually physically resetting your body. because when you're in the middle of that argument or you're in the middle of that discussion, your blood pressure is going up. I personally get little red spots on my neck and my chest. So they totally know, right? I mean, I have no hiding it. Like they know I'm mad, so just being able to physically reset yourself and put yourself into a different place isn't just preparing you for the next conversation. It physically is taking care of yourself. Construction is very high stress, very much pushed with an anxiety, deadline type of mentality. And especially with men, it is something that they typically hold inside and just keep pushing through, just keep doing the next job, just keep moving to the next task. And this actually is a buildup of chronic stress. And that chronic stress is actually working against your body, and it is causing health issues that you may or may not be aware of. And so we always want to be taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're paying attention to some of those physical things that are happening to us on a job as well when we're doing our communication. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started in today's teaching. So today we're talking about building your transition bridge. Now, this could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people because there's a lot of opportunities in construction, and those opportunities are either going to be identified and laid out in a destination map that you've been able to create for yourself, or they're going to just occur as doors open. And so we personally want to be intentional about the way that we're building our transition bridge. And so the only way that we can really do that is understanding ourselves. And it's hard for people to do when you focus on yourself, because we're always all so busy of focusing on others, being able to do things for others, and being able to create a life for others. And so really taking the time to look at ourselves and understand what's going on with us, we get to it last. I mean, it's kind of the last thing on our list. And so we make sure everything else is taken care of. But if you can't take care of yourself first, then it makes it really hard for you to be at your very best in order to be able to help others. And so this is a really key point and something that I want you to really take in and think about today. What is it that you're doing in your everyday life that is getting put or pushed to the side, that is not allowing you to be the very best at what you could possibly be in order to be the best for your client or for your wife or for your husband or for your best friend who needs you at the moment? All of these things require you to be at your best. So taking the time to understand ourselves is going to be huge. And in the transition bridge, it's going to give us an accelerated opportunity to really key in and hone on what it is that we want to work on to get very specific and better. So I'll just use, because Nicholas gave specific examples of scheduling, budget, and communication. Now, I know that Nicholas is good at all three of those, or he wouldn't be where he is today. Okay. So we then need to be able to see deeper into that. What does that really mean? So is schedule a problem because of potential procrastination, or because of overwhelm, or because of other things that are coming in to that block of time when you're specifically trying to work on one particular thing? So when we're looking at, and Robert, you had mentioned communication as well. So when we're looking at communication, is it because we're an introvert? I personally am. And so I have to work harder at being able to get out of my comfort box. I mean, I got way out of my comfort box last weekend. I went down to a speaking event that I was invited to for a sponsorship for women warriors, for vets. And I got up in front of them and I did a talk, which really isn't that tough for me because I'm used to doing lectures in front of lots of students and everything. But the interaction before the entire event and after, like I went down there and stayed with a group of women in a house. I didn't know any of the women. I made extra effort to come downstairs and sit at the table and listen to their stories and visit with them. It was really uncomfortable, but that's where we find our growth. So anytime that we're in a place of uncomfortability, of being able to just appreciate that time and recognize, why am I uncomfortable? Am I uncomfortable because I am in danger, or am I uncomfortable because it is new to me? So remember that anything that you want in life, if you already had it, there would not be a want, there would not be a desire for it. So in order for you to reach some of those areas where you want to go, you have to be willing to go into uncomfortable new areas, because if that's part of the bridge that's going to get you to where it is that you want to be. So when we're talking about this and understanding ourselves better, knowing how skill sets work and how important skill sets are in construction is huge. So I just want to take a little bit of time to explain to you the 3 sets of skills that we need to be aware of when we're working on what we're looking at for personal growth and how we're going to build ourselves into a construction manager. So the first are innate or inherent skill sets. So these are skill sets that are born with us. They're in our DNA. They came from our mom, they came from our dad, they came from our grandparents. These are things that built us physically. This is woven through our DNA. So some of it could be good and some of it can be challenging. So alcoholism is something that typically is genetically ingrained into somebody's DNA. And so that might be something that you have to work on that is going to be carried forward. An introvert or an extrovert is something that is woven into your DNA. It's kind of part of who you are. And then being able to look at it and understand that, yes, there's these times of uncomfortability, but if I wanted to grow in that, it's just going to be a short period of sacrifice. So short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. Okay. So when we're looking at innate or inherent skill sets, these are the foundation to who we are. Now, this is where it comes in, is that if you have a sibling or you have a sister or brother or a cousin, you know that your DNA is very similar to theirs, but you live 2 totally different lives. I mean, you're 4 or 5 years ahead of them. So the experiences that you experience with mom and dad are 4 or 5 years different than the experiences that they're experiencing. So as they go through life and those life experiences start to interact with the DNA makeup of that individual person, that starts to design who that person is. And I'll just use an example, is that I love dogs. I have 3 dogs and they're beautiful, unconditional love. They're amazing. I've had dogs my whole life. My parents, we grew up around animals. So my experiences with dogs have always been really good. Now, I've been around dogs who are aggressive, who I could or should be scared of, but my initial interaction with them is a positive interaction because all of the interactions I've had with my dogs are positive. However, someone who has not had a positive experience and has initiated a fear around dogs, then we all know dogs are also very sensitive. So when that person introduces themselves to a new dog, that dog can already feel the fear in that person, and it sets off a reaction in the dog that creates another experience exactly like the one that that person is fearing. And so these compounded experiences start developing evidence for that person that dogs are bad or dogs are scary. And so we want to be very intentional about the repetitive experiences that we invite into our life that are going to match up and correspond with our personal DNA. So those experiences are called learned experiences. So we've learned that by what's happened in life. So those life experiences, we've learned that along with our innate and inherent DNA. So here's where we're at today. Here's where we want to be going. So when we start building our transition bridge, we want to go to our earned experiences. And those earned experiences are going to be intentionally specific to earning information and knowledge of intentional things that we are going to align with where we want to be. One of my dogs that I love very much has been jumping up on the side of my leg. So we're trying to get him out of the house. So pay attention, you guys. And so when we're going through innate and inherent skill sets, what's uniquely designed for us, and we go through our learned experiences in life that are accompanied with our DNA that create who we are and what our beliefs are and the evidence in our life. And then we want to transition or change our direction to build the bridge over into a knowledge center like construction management or the construction industry. Then there's specific things that we need to be willing to do, whether they're hard or not, in order to build ourselves over there. And the reason why this is so important is because life is hard. And I'm just going to put that out there right now, because there are people or individuals who have had it very easy in life. And again, we'll go back to that helicopter parenting where, we weren't allowed to fail and understand that the learning was in the experience, not in the result. And so when we haven't been given that chance, then it gets really scary when we're out there on our own, because we don't have somebody guiding us or leading us or managing us. And so the thought of failure can be very scary. And so knowing and understanding that in this knowledge bridge, there's going to be failures, but they're not going to be again, I said yesterday, there are no problems or no failures, they're learning opportunities. So it just means that you have to take a pivot, or that you just have to change your direction. And so that isn't really a failure. It's simply making you aware that that's not the right direction and you need to adjust. And so intentionally designing and identifying what it is that you need to make that adjustment so that you can learn and continue building over that bridge, then that's what we're looking for. So with that said, does anybody have any particular things that they are concerned about not knowing that they're going to need to know before they become a construction manager or move over on that side of the bridge that has your vision that you're aligning your life with right now? Yep. I see nodding heads. So very good. So what we're going to want to do then is we're going to want to identify what that is. And what happens is if we can identify it, and then we can attribute what it is that we're going to be building in order to get us over the bridge, we can determine the time frame of that. It is a very nice confidence builder to know that that's only going to be a 2-month training program, or that's only going to be a 2-year certification program, or that's only going to be 5 hours of hard physical labor. Like if you have an understanding that there's an end point to it and that it's not going to last forever, then it helps you move forward easier. And really nothing lasts forever, right? We're always in a changing situation. And so recognizing that and then being able to move forward without fear is going to help you accelerate your timeline and where you want to go. So when we're doing that, we want to recognize that everybody learns differently. So just like I said, that you could have siblings that all have the same DNA. We both have the same mom and dad, but we're all so very different in our own ways. Even in our DNA makeup, we're completely different in most cases. And so we're all going to have different learning styles. And so there's three main learning styles, but I'm going to say four, but we have visual. So some people are visual learners where they like to see PowerPoints or they like to see the drawings on the instructions. And so this is why in construction management, we use drawings. It's typically something that works really, really well in construction. And when I say really, really well, it's what people are most responsive to. However, any of us that have ever been married know that when you come home with a piece of furniture from IKEA, there typically are extra screws and bolts left that nobody can explain. So we also want to be able to follow the instructions. And those instructions are going to be part of a audio visual. So you're going to be able to hear those instructions of how we're going to be doing something. So the visual is the drawings. We then have specifications that also work very well as far as visual and audio. I personally will at times visualize and memorize what a page looks like. And that's how I'm able to remember what was in that particular spec section. And so I'll recall seeing it and having that picture or vision in my head. I'm a very visual learner. But then we also have kinesthetics. And so having hands-on learning style is probably one of the biggest types of learning styles that we see in the construction industry. So these are the people that probably did really, really well in auto or wood shop, and they were able to put things together with their hands and be able to build things. And so it made sense for them to want to move right into construction because it was in alignment with their learning style. The problem is that when we try to take intellectual articulate type of work like reading or textbook work, fitting it into a kinesthetic style is difficult unless there is an application that you can have somebody do as they're implementing the other two learning styles, visual and audio. And that's why I like the fourth learning style, which is a combination. And so that combination learning style is what I feel works best for most people. So in the learning materials that I provide, we do a visual, an audio, and then also an application so that everybody's getting a little bit of everything in that particular educational platform or learning that they're doing for that coursework. Also in my coursework, I introduce what we call human behavior and soft skill development. And this is particularly important for the skill sets that we need in our communication with others and being able to know and understand how to read where others are at, move in a supportive, grateful, even loving way towards other people when we're trying to work with hard management decisions and hard deadlines, stress, and anxiety. So these are some of the things that we would be working on moving forward on building a transition bridge. So just to recap on that, you would have a visual learner who is going to be looking at the drawings, is going to be looking at what it's supposed to look like at the end. So we often have elevations or renderings that give you a picture of what it's going to look like. And then we have audio, which would be like what we're doing right now, video, listening to ebooks and that type of thing. And then also being able to review specifications and instructions in the drawings. And then we have our kinesthetic, which is then applying and being able to work through a problem with your hands, critical thinking and problem solving. is implemented during this type of learning style. So it's really important for you to understand what your learning style is, because that is going to be important for then you to interpret and modify any information that's coming at you into your own particular learning style. What this will do is it doesn't just help you learn, but it helps you accelerate the absorption of the information. So when we're taking notes or we're physically doing something, even if you're not a note taker, like say that you're, I mean, this is a big thing with guys, right? Is that you just really don't want to be writing or taking notes. But the thing is you don't have to just be writing or taking notes. You could draw pictures or you could bullet point things, and being able to place it on paper is the kinesthetic action. It is what is moving your body while you're learning, and it is allowing that information to sink deeper within you so that you can build that solid platform for that foundational base that we're trying to build before you can start going vertical with the information that you're learning. So, any questions on any of that so far? Okay. All right. So, today, what we're also going to be talking about a little bit is I'm just going to introduce you to the construction management online program that we're offering, and just give you a better overview of exactly what it is so that you can decide if that's part of what you want to use in building your transition knowledge bridge. So when we're talking about construction management online, it is 4 pathways, 4 certifications that we're looking at. So we have a construction administration certification, a construction certification, construction management certification, and a construction leadership certification. And so all of those 4 pathways start with 4 classes in the introduction to construction management. So all of the students in the cohorts will be starting with those 4 classes, and those 4 classes are going to feel different. They're going to feel like, what does this have to do with construction? But really what it's doing is it's preparing you for being able to accelerate your learning and absorb more information to build a stronger foundation, so that when that fire hose is blowing information at you, you can collect and grab the information that you need, because you've now become more aware of exactly what you intentionally want to do and where you want to go. So in those 4 classes, we start off by identifying if you really want to even be a construction manager. There's so many different opportunities in the construction industry. We want to make sure that we're preparing you for exactly the direction that you want to go. And so being able to know and understand what a construction manager does, all of the different roles and responsibilities, how we work as a researcher, a facilitator of information, and a conduit between all of the different entities. We learn about teamwork and being able to read and understand what an inspector needs on a job, what their perspective is, what the perspective of an architect is, a subcontractor. And so understanding all of those is also going to open up your eyes of maybe that's a direction that you want to go instead of construction management. Which these courses will still help you in that. It's just that we will move to a new perspective to align with that particular goal if your goal has changed. With those, we're going to understand more about projects, project development, and how a construction manager's roles and responsibilities will change based on the type of projects that they're conducting. So whether they're an industrial project, commercial project, residential project, how large is that project? Who's funding that project? All of these kind of things that build a project are going to have implications on what kind of construction manager you're going to be. The same thing's true for who you're going to be working for, because general contractors have construction managers. Owner clients have construction managers. There's architects that have construction managers. So you can still be a construction manager and be in a whole different type of atmosphere that is going to require different responsibilities of you. So huge opportunities in the construction industry for this. We're also going to help you understand how to transition where you're at now into a construction management position. So if you are an on-site hands-on worker and it seems intimidating to move over into a supervisory or management role, then we're going to help you understand how to transition your knowledge and move into that particular area. Then the next course that we're going to be taking is basically a learn how to learn what you want to learn. And it's understanding for those particularly that have been coming from the site who don't know necessarily how to research for information in order to be able to support things that you're trying to get done on the job site. Being able to research for submittals, being able to put submittals together, being able to know and understand the appropriate way to engage and talk with all of the diverse people that you're going to be talking with when you become a construction manager. Understanding how to take notes, understanding how to build meeting minutes and correspondence and other things that are going to build a historical record for you on these projects. And so it just gives you a little bit of a little better understanding, more confidence, and a feeling of really identifying your learning style, how it is that you intake information in order for you to be able to resonate quickly and be able to learn as much as you can at a much faster pace. Then the next course that we're going to be taking is just a comprehension of construction. What's the history of construction? How did it start? Who even decided that there needed to be a construction manager? We have architects and general contractors. How did a construction manager even come to be? And so we're going to understand the importance of a construction manager and why that position came available. And that also, not everything about being a construction manager is great. So we're going to also learn some of the challenges and why some people think you don't need a construction manager. And so we're going to have more awareness about our purpose in this industry so that we can do a better job of understanding why we're needed and what we need to do in order to be able to make our client happy in that. And then the last class that we're going to take is a legacy class. So in the legacy class, it is a master plan blueprint, and we design a destination map. Once you've taken these other courses and you're just positive that you know exactly what direction you want to go, we build a destination map that then outlines the educational components that are necessary to build your growth into the next level so that you can scale over in alignment with your vision of your personal master plan. We then use this master plan as a base throughout your certification program. And about 2 or 3 times during the program, we go back and reassess that with you so that we can make sure that we're continuing to move in the right direction. And so that's called your master plan legacy class, which is a blueprint mapping and destination map of your personal, and it's totally personal. It's one-on-one just for you, and mapping that out so that you know short-term sacrifices for long-term gain, and you can see the time frame associated with really what it's going to take for you to move to the next level. Then when we move into the paths, and now you know where your destination plan is and you want to move to these paths, there's those 4 paths that I talked about. The construction path is going to be for someone who probably has never been out in the field before, and they need a little bit more technical construction experience, including terminology and that type of thing, in order to prepare them for the construction management industry. All of these courses are taught with the perspective of leadership, mindset, human behavior, and soft skill development. So even though those focuses are so incredibly important, you really don't recognize that that's how you're being taught the actual construction information, because it's all part of the curriculum. So in the construction administration path, this is a path that I'm really excited about offering individuals. And that's because there's a lot of people who accidentally fall into construction. Like they might be with a temp company and answering phones and be in that office and then start hearing the terminology and then are asked to start filing the correspondence. So as they file the correspondence, they're reading it and start recognizing what an RFI is, what a letter is, what a meeting minute is. They're the ones that are interfacing with the contractor coming in hot into the office trailer. And so they're learning communication with those particular individuals. And so it really is able to transition the information that they're learning on a daily basis in being let's just put it this way. If you understand where you're going and every day you're in the construction, then when somebody says something to you, you can automatically relate it to, oh, that's right. That's exactly what I need to know when I'm on that side. So an example would be superintendents. If a superintendent knew that a construction manager had to go through, organize, and iron all of their invoices because they crumple their invoices up and stick them in the door of their truck until they're necessary, if they knew that they were going to be the ones on the other end of that and they were going to have to code all of those and get those ready for a job report, then when they put them in their truck all crumpled up, they might take a second thought and think, you know what, this would be so easy just to put the name of the project that this receipt belongs to at the corner when I get done with the receipt before I put it in the envelope in the month that I purchased it. I'm just even that small of an organization can save hours for a construction manager. So if you know what it is that you're going to be heading towards, then while you're in the work, it makes more sense to you. And if it makes more sense, then it allows you to be able to absorb it more because you're thinking, gosh, this is really useful. It's something I need to learn, something I need to know. So I'm going to hang on to this information. So as we're going through our construction administration, we're teaching them, you know, why is it so important for this filing system? Why is it so important that these documents are all linked to each other? So they can see why that's important, and then they're able to pick up and learn that faster and better. Then in our construction management certification, it's all about construction management. So I teach you how to write meeting minutes. I teach you how to put submittals together. I teach you about project life cycle. Everything that you need to know about construction management, we're going to go through in that particular certification. Obviously, it's where my strength is. And so the robust amount of information is in that particular certification pathway. And then we have construction leadership. So in construction leadership, it's going to be more of a catch-all and really hoping to use this as a support system for companies and for companies to be able to kind of put their leaders through this particular certification. This certification talks about really hard topics. So we are going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and what that should mean, not necessarily how it's being presented. We need to know and understand that it really is more about being respectful to others and having accountability of yourself and how you want to be treated and how you're treating other people. If we were going through life and we were treating everyone the way that they should be treated, it should color you are, what sex you are, what gender identity that you have. It is all about us being able to work together and being able to have a common goal, which is the deliverable of this particular project. It doesn't mean that your race or your color or your gender is not important, but it's not supposed to be the focus of what it is that we're trying to accomplish together. And so being able to move forward that way and taking personal accountability of how you respond and treat other people is going to be unique to you. And so we're going to go through that in construction leadership. in construction leadership, we're also going to talk about the big elephant in the room of women and men in construction. And so for women, it's really not even women with men in construction, it's women with women in construction. I mean, sometimes it can be really difficult for women to even be able to correspond with other women. And so knowing and understanding how we talk to each other and the words that we intentionally need to choose in our discussions when we're talking with each other is going to be really important. But most of all, just educating men how to interact with women, because most of men are used to interacting with women as a wife, a mom, a girlfriend, a sister, an ex-girlfriend, which some of those discussions could dictate how a man is going to treat a woman in the industry, regardless if they're a good worker or not. So they're only going back to those three types of learning skill sets that we identified, is they're going back to life experiences that are telling them that women are not capable of working in this industry based on an experience I had that showed me evidence that that's true. So us women also need to understand that it is, again, a matter of educating that person and helping them recognize that there's fault in their thinking, and that they need to be able to give me an opportunity to prove that I'm going to be able to do the work, or that I'm going to be able to move forward in success in this industry. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I don't want to carry railroad ties on my shoulders anymore. I used to do it when I was younger in order to be able to try to keep up with the guys on the job site. But even now, I wish I hadn't have done it, because I'm physically not made to do it. And so my body is going to burn out faster trying to prove something to someone when that's really not the area that I want to be proving anything. I want to be able to be in an area where I enjoy and that I'm good at, and that's teaching and managing. So neither one of those require me to do heavy lifting. So if I can't do it, then it's not meant for me. Some women are able to do it, and they should be given the opportunity to do that. And so that's what we want to be able to talk about, is just making sure that we're not keeping anyone from being able to be the very best that they can be in what it is that they're good at, and offering as many skill sets that we can lean on in the construction industry. In the construction leadership, we're also going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about intelligent and unintelligent thinking, and disempowered and empowerment, in recognizing that it's a lot of it has to do with the mindset and where we're at, and what kind of questions we're asking ourselves throughout the day while we're doing work, or while we're identifying our goals, or while we're trying to complete a project. And so being aware and having more awareness of where it is that we're at, in whether or not we're using intelligent thinking, we're collecting research and educating ourselves and giving ourselves evidence that is going to prove to us that this is possible, and that we're going to be able to move forward this way. So being able to include mindset in the construction leadership path is also going to be really important. And so with that, I am just going to go ahead and see, does anybody have any questions? No questions? All right, so today we are going to be putting a link in the comments, and with that link is an opportunity to be able to review the offer that we have. I don't really want to spend too much more time on it, in the sense of, I did promise that we're going to do 5 days of learning. But I did want to make sure that everyone was aware of that. We're going to be having the next cohort of students July 17th. So We're going to get everybody who's interested to be able to fill out the application. You'll have a one-on-one meeting with me, and then we'll be able to start talking about your destination map so that we can identify exactly where it is that you want to go, and then be able to build the education plan to make that happen. And then always just, thinking about where am I right now? Am I where I want to be, and where do I want to go? And so if you're not already where you want to go, then obviously we're going to do everything that we can to build that plan for you so that I can help. You can lean on my experience, and I can mentor you through that process and be able to help you through that. So with that said, I just again appreciate everyone here today, and I want to be able to answer any questions that anyone might have. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about constructing your life and being able to start building that destination map on your own. So we're going to talk about that. And just one quick exercise that I would really encourage everyone to do is, I know that you've all taken the time to identify what your genius is and your different skill sets, but try sending an email to 3 people today, and just a really quick email. And in that email, let them know that you're working on a personal development opportunity and you are just curious what they see as your very best skill sets. And if they could provide insight to you, what would they say that you may need to work on? And the reason why you want to be able to say this to people who you love, who are around you, who are there to support you, is because sometimes it's really hard to hear from other people what they think that you should be working on or what you could be better at, but they're doing it from a place of love. So don't ask the bully from high school that used to beat you up every Thursday. Don't ask them. Ask 3 people close to you that you love, and ask for those 3 things. And then tomorrow we'll be able to have more information of what we're going to use to help build your destination map. So with that, does anybody have any questions? Okay, everyone, have an absolutely wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.